The Great War, as they called it, reshaped the world. Imagine a time when empires crumbled and millions of lives were forever changed. From the trenches of the Western Front to the battlefields of Gallipoli, soldiers faced unimaginable horrors. The introduction of tanks and airplanes marked a new era of warfare, while the use of chemical weapons brought terror to the battlefield. The war ended in 1918, but its impact lingered, sowing the seeds for future conflicts. The Treaty of Versailles aimed to bring peace, but instead ignited resentment, setting the stage for World War II. The echoes of World War I remind us of the fragility of peace and the cost of conflict.
The causes of World War I are a tangled web of alliances, nationalism, and imperial ambitions. It all kicked off with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914, but the roots run deeper. Europe was a powder keg, with countries like Germany and France eyeing each other warily, fueled by a fierce sense of nationalism. The intricate system of alliances meant that a conflict between two nations could quickly engulf the continent. Add in the race for colonies and military buildup, and you have a recipe for disaster. The war wasn't just about one event. It was a culmination of decades of tension and rivalry, leading to a conflict that would reshape the world forever. Militarism in World War I was like a ticking time bomb. Nations were obsessed with building massive armies and stockpiling weapons, believing that strength ensured security. Countries like Germany and Britain raced to outdo each other, creating an arms race that heightened tensions. This obsession wasn't just about defense, it was a show of power. When the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand sparked the war, militarism had already set the stage. Alliances formed, and suddenly, a regional conflict exploded into a global catastrophe. The belief that military might could solve disputes led to unprecedented destruction, reshaping the world forever. In the early 20th century, the world was a powder keg, and alliances were the match. The Triple Entente, comprising France, Russia, and Britain, stood against the Central Powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. These alliances weren't just friendships. They were intricate webs of treaties and promises. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in 1914, a chain reaction ignited. Russia mobilized to protect Serbia, Germany declared war on Russia, and soon, the entire continent was engulfed in conflict. It was a deadly game of chess, where one move could lead to millions of casualties. The alliances shaped the war, turning a regional dispute into a global catastrophe. Imperialism was a driving force behind World War I, as nations scrambled for colonies and resources. European powers like Britain, France, and Germany expanded their empires, often clashing over territories in Africa and Asia. This competition fueled tensions, creating a volatile environment. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was just the spark. Underlying rivalries and alliances, like the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance, set the stage for a global conflict. The war wasn't just about borders. It was about power, prestige, and the scramble for dominance in a rapidly changing world. The consequences reshaped nations and left a lasting legacy that still echoes today. Nationalism in World War I was a powerful force, igniting passions and fueling conflicts. Countries were driven by a fierce pride in their identities, leading to intense rivalries. In Europe, nations like Germany and France were locked in a struggle for dominance, while the Balkans were a powder keg of ethnic tensions. This fervor pushed countries to form alliances, creating a web of commitments that turned a regional conflict into a global war. Nationalism not only united people under a common flag, but also sowed the seeds of division, as empires crumbled and new nations emerged from the ashes. The war reshaped borders and identities, leaving a legacy that still influences global politics today.
On June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, a single bullet changed the course of history. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was targeted by a group of nationalist assassins. Their motive? To challenge the empire's grip on Bosnia. After a failed bombing attempt earlier that day, fate intervened. The Archduke's driver took a wrong turn, leading them right to one of the assassins, Gavrilo Princip. In that moment, he fired two shots, killing both Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. This act of violence ignited a powder keg of alliances and tensions, plunging the world into World War I, reshaping nations and lives forever.
World War I saw some of the most powerful nations of the time take center stage. On one side, we had the Allies, including France, the United Kingdom, Russia, and later the United States, each bringing unique strengths to the fight. France was determined to reclaim its honor after the Franco-Prussian War, while Britain's naval power was unmatched. The U.S. joined in 1917, tipping the scales with fresh troops and resources. On the opposing side were the Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. Germany, with its advanced military tactics, posed a formidable threat. This global conflict reshaped borders and alliances, leaving a lasting impact on the world stage. The Central Powers, a coalition of Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria, played a pivotal role in World War I. They were driven by a mix of nationalism and imperial ambitions. Germany, with its advanced military technology, sought to assert dominance in Europe. Austria-Hungary aimed to maintain its vast empire amidst rising nationalism. The Ottoman Empire, struggling to hold onto its territories, joined in hopes of regaining lost glory. Bulgaria, eager to expand its borders, allied with them as well. Their combined forces initially achieved significant victories, but internal strife and resource shortages ultimately led to their downfall. The Central Powers' defeat reshaped the world, paving the way for new nations and ideologies. The Western Front during World War I was a brutal landscape of trench warfare, stretching over 400 miles from the North Sea to Switzerland. Soldiers faced unimaginable conditions, mud, rats, and the constant threat of enemy fire. The stalemate led to horrific battles like the Somme and Verdun, where millions fought for mere yards of ground. Innovations in warfare, like poison gas and tanks, changed the battlefield forever. Yet, amid the chaos, stories of bravery and camaraderie emerged as soldiers forged bonds that transcended the horrors around them. The Western Front was not just a battleground, it was a testament to human resilience in the face of despair. The Battle of the Somme, fought in 1916, was one of the bloodiest battles in history. Over 1 million men were wounded or killed in just a few months. It began with a week-long artillery bombardment, meant to destroy German defenses. But when the soldiers went over the top, they faced barbed wire and machine guns, leading to staggering losses. The first day alone saw nearly 60,000 British casualties. Yet, despite the horrors, the Somme symbolized resilience. It marked a shift in tactics, pushing for combined arms warfare. The battle ultimately ended in November, with only a few miles gained, but it forever changed the landscape of warfare and the lives of those who fought. The Battle of Verdun, fought in 1916, was one of the longest and costliest battles of World War I. Over 10 months, French and German forces clashed in a brutal war of attrition. The French, determined to hold Verdun, famously declared, "They shall not pass." But the relentless fighting led to nearly 700,000 casualties. The landscape was transformed into a hellish wasteland, with trenches, barbed wire, and the haunting echoes of artillery. Verdun became a symbol of French national pride and resilience, embodying the horrors of war and the human spirit's endurance. This battle wasn't just about territory, it was a fight for survival and identity.
The Eastern Front of World War I was a brutal theater of conflict, stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. Here, the Central Powers faced off against Russia, with battles that were marked by staggering casualties and harsh conditions. The vast landscapes became a graveyard for millions, as soldiers endured freezing winters and relentless assaults. The Battle of Tannenberg in 1914 showcased German tactical brilliance, encircling and decimating the Russian Second Army. Meanwhile, the Eastern Front was a game of shifting alliances, with nations like Romania joining the fray, only to be overwhelmed. This front was not just about military might. It was a clash of empires, ideologies, and the human spirit, forever altering the course of history. The Gallipoli campaign was a pivotal moment in World War I, unfolding between 1915 and 1916. Allied forces aimed to secure a sea route to Russia and knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war. Instead, they faced fierce resistance from Turkish troops led by Mustafa Kemal, who would later become Ataturk. The campaign was marked by brutal trench warfare, harsh conditions, and staggering casualties. Over 500,000 lives lost. Despite the Allies' hopes, the operation ended in failure, highlighting the challenges of amphibious assaults and the tenacity of the defenders. Gallipoli remains a symbol of national pride for Turkey and a somber chapter in the histories of Australia and New Zealand, commemorating the Anzacs who fought valiantly against overwhelming odds.
The Battle of Jutland, fought in 1916, was the largest naval battle of World War I, pitting the British Royal Navy against the Imperial German Navy. Over 250 ships clashed in the North Sea, with more than 100,000 men involved. The British aimed to maintain their naval dominance, while the Germans sought to challenge it. Despite heavy losses, over 6,000 British and 2,500 German sailors, the battle ended inconclusively. The British Grand Fleet, led by Admiral Jellicoe, managed to hold the line, but the Germans celebrated a tactical victory as they returned home with their fleet largely intact. Jutland shaped naval strategy for years, highlighting the importance of battleships and the complexities of naval warfare. In World War I, the skies transformed into a battleground as pilots faced off in daring dogfights. The iconic Sopwith Camel and the German Fokker Dr. I became symbols of aerial prowess. Pilots like the Red Baron became legends, racking up kills while executing breathtaking maneuvers. But it wasn't just about combat. Reconnaissance missions were crucial, providing vital intel on enemy positions. The war saw the birth of aerial tactics, with formations and strategies evolving rapidly. By the end, air warfare had changed forever, laying the groundwork for the future of military aviation. World War I was a turning point in military technology. The introduction of tanks revolutionized ground warfare, allowing troops to break through enemy lines. Airplanes transformed reconnaissance and combat, giving rise to dogfights in the skies. Chemical warfare, with deadly gases like mustard gas, added a terrifying new dimension to the battlefield. Meanwhile, advancements in communication, like the radio, enabled real-time coordination of troops. These innovations not only changed the course of the war, but also laid the groundwork for future conflicts, forever altering how wars would be fought. World War I marked a turning point in warfare with the introduction of tanks. These armored behemoths, first deployed by the British in 1916, were designed to break the stalemate of trench warfare. Imagine the surprise of soldiers as these hulking machines rolled across no man's land, crushing barbed wire and defying enemy fire. Tanks were revolutionary, combining speed and firepower, and they evolved rapidly throughout the war. By the conflict's end, they had transformed military strategy, paving the way for modern armored warfare. The legacy of those early tanks still shapes how we think about combat today. In World War I, chemical warfare changed the battlefield forever. Imagine soldiers facing a new kind of enemy, poison gas. Chlorine, phosgene, and mustard gas became infamous for their devastating effects. Soldiers would wake up choking, their lungs burning, as they struggled to survive. The horrors of gas attacks were not just physical, they left deep psychological scars. Despite gas masks, many suffered from long-term health issues. This brutal tactic pushed the limits of warfare ethics, raising questions about humanity in conflict. Chemical warfare marked a dark chapter in history, reminding us of the lengths nations would go to in pursuit of victory. World War I transformed aviation from a novelty into a crucial military asset. Imagine pilots soaring in fragile biplanes, often made of wood and fabric, engaging in dogfights high above the trenches. The iconic Sopwith Camel and the German Fokker Dr. I became symbols of aerial combat, each with unique strengths. Pilots relied on skill and instinct, often flying without parachutes, facing not just enemy fire, but also the elements. The war sparked innovations like synchronized machine guns, allowing pilots to shoot through their propellers. These daring aviators, the Knights of the Sky, changed the course of warfare, paving the way for the advanced aircraft we see today.
World War I transformed naval warfare, and submarines played a crucial role. The German U-boat campaign unleashed terror on Allied shipping, sinking over 5,000 vessels. These stealthy predators operated beneath the waves, using torpedoes to strike fear into the hearts of sailors. The infamous sinking of the Lusitania in 1915, which claimed nearly 1,200 lives, shifted public opinion and brought the United States closer to war. Meanwhile, the Allies developed countermeasures, like depth charges and convoy systems, to combat this underwater menace. Submarines not only changed the rules of engagement, but also foreshadowed the future of naval warfare, paving the way for the submarine arms race in the decades to come. World War I reshaped the world in ways we're still grappling with today. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on Germany, sowing seeds of resentment that would later fuel World War II. The map of Europe was redrawn, creating new nations and ethnic tensions that persist. Economically, the war devastated many countries, leading to the Great Depression. Socially, it sparked movements for women's rights, as women took on roles traditionally held by men. The war also birthed new technologies and tactics, forever changing warfare. The consequences of World War I echo through history, reminding us of the fragility of peace.
In 1917, the United States entered World War I, driven by a mix of economic interests and the need to protect democracy. German U-boats were sinking American ships, and the Zimmermann telegram, which proposed a military alliance between Germany and Mexico, pushed us over the edge. By 1918, American troops, known as the Doughboys, played a crucial role in turning the tide of the war. Their bravery in battles like the Meuse-Argonne offensive helped to bring about an armistice on November 11, 1918. The war ended, but its impact reshaped the world, setting the stage for future conflicts and the rise of the United States as a global power. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, reshaped the world after World War I. It imposed heavy reparations on Germany, stripping it of territories and limiting its military. This treaty aimed to prevent future conflicts, but instead, it sowed the seeds of resentment. The harsh terms fueled economic turmoil and political instability in Germany, paving the way for the rise of extremism. Ironically, the treaty that sought peace ended up laying the groundwork for World War II. It's a stark reminder of how the quest for justice can sometimes lead to unintended consequences.
World War I reshaped our world in ways we still feel today. It was a brutal conflict that introduced modern warfare, with tanks and airplanes changing the battlefield forever. The Treaty of Versailles didn't just end the war, it sowed the seeds for future conflicts, including World War II. The war also sparked social change, empowering women and minorities as they stepped into roles previously denied to them. The League of Nations emerged, aiming for peace but ultimately failing to prevent future wars. The legacy of World War I is a complex tapestry of innovation, loss, and the relentless pursuit of peace that continues to influence global politics and society today.